All right, here we are. Good morning, friends, and welcome to the main object big book study of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am an alcoholic. My name is David. Once again, thrilled to be here with all of you. And I've asked our friend Carolyn to read our fellowship's preamble. And Carolyn, if you just bear with me. There you go. You should be seeing that on your screen.
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help the other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Carolyn, thank you so much.
Welcome.
And I am, forgive me, folks, my wanted to hold while my printer did its thing. Um, would you join me in a moment of silence for those still suffering from alcoholism in and outside the rooms, followed by the Serenity Prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Um, as I think most of you know, we are a line by line big book study. We go very slowly through the book. Purpose of doing that is to really take a deeper dive into what our co-founder Bill W. wrote in the first 164 pages, and in doing that, at least if it mirrors any of what my process has been, when I did that, when I started working with a sponsor who took me through that process in that way, it opened up the book in a way that made it an entirely new document for me and really transformed my program by helping me not only understand in a much deeper way how my alcoholism and how my recovery operated, but how to effectively share this with other people. And it's all right there in the book. And most of it I just bypassed, just reading a chapter at a time. And so we slow it down. And so, in order to do that, one of the things we do is we categorize the text uh, into five types of statements. And I'll bring that up on the screen in case, and this will be in the chat as well. But you can see questions, directions and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And the colors are the highlighter colors that we use. And again, it's all, and that'll be in the chat, and it's all for the purpose of really unlocking the book as a tool, or really a primary tool for our recovery. And our format is that I'm going to share on the text today till about 7, the top of the hour, for those of us who may not be on the East Coast. And then we'll open it up for discussion and your thoughts and questions, anything like that. Also, FYI, the meeting is being recorded. So I just record my part and we put that up on a YouTube archive so people can listen to stuff they may have missed or want a refresher or that kind of thing. And the reason I don't record people's comments is just in case anybody's squeamish about being recorded. And we only do the audio, no video. So, and I have mentioned that I guess in starting next week, the name of the meeting is going to change, and it's just a logistical thing. No deep significance beyond it, but it's going to be called the Conscious Contact Big Book Study, and that'll align it with the other meetings that I'm involved with that I do each week. And so, anyway, moving forward, we are in, as I mentioned, we're in chapter 6 of our book on page 72, Into Action. Last week we finished up How It Works, chapter 5. And I'm just going to summarize where we are and where we're going, where we've been, where we are, where we're going. So while the previous chapter, chapter 5, How It Works, summarizes the program, helps us make a decision in step 3, and then complete a written inventory in step 4. That's what we see in chapter 5. In chapter 6, Into Action, we are led through a thorough series of concrete actions that are intended to free us from the tenacious spiritual malady that binds us to alcohol. And we'll see that right away when we get into the text today, how Bill is really focused on the spiritual malady and freeing us from the spiritual malady. So anyway, the actions detailed in chapter 6 really cover steps 5 through 11, and they force us to acknowledge our defects, surrender those defects to God's dominion, repair the damage we have created, and then adopt ongoing practices to ensure that this process of addressing the spiritual malady becomes a permanent way of life. And today's reading, what we're going to cover today, I hope we can cover about 2 pages. It focuses our attention on step 5, the step through which we fully acknowledge the exact nature of our wrongs by sharing a searching and fearless inventory, moral inventory, with another person and God. And then for many of us, the prospect of sharing ourselves in this manner with another person can seem so daunting that we might have to fight the urge to avoid or minimize the entire process. And I can speak from experience on that. I did for much longer than I care to admit, but I did. And I paid the price for it. Thank God I didn't drink, but created a lot of wreckage in the process. So, and for this reason that we have this tendency to want to avoid or minimize, Bill goes to great lengths to detail the tremendous peril we face should we seek to avoid step 5, along with the various strategies we often engage in order to bypass this humbling experience. And so, again, we are at the top, at the beginning, on page 72, and we start with a question. Having made our personal inventory, and of course he's referring to step 4, what shall we do about it? Now the rest of the paragraph is just for those highlighting, is green. It's all explanation and direction. But there's some really critical stuff in here. This is what struck me when I was reviewing the material previously, getting ready for this meeting. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? What's the first thing he puts up front and center? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. Notice he's not saying we really need to get free of alcohol. Now I'm not minimizing the need to get free of alcohol. But what Bill wants to make sure of is that we don't get our priorities mixed up, because I think Bill's experience taught him that if he put full focus on alcohol itself and drinking itself, the tendency would be to sidestep or minimize the deeper implications of the spiritual malady. So the irony is, by putting alcohol front and center and making the spiritual malady secondary or just an aspect of the alcoholism, by putting alcohol front and center like that, we actually bind ourselves to the disease. We actually avoid the opportunity to be free. And what Bill found is that when we put the spiritual malady first, the alcohol, freedom from alcohol, follows as a result. I hope that makes sense to everybody, because it's a critical point, especially if you're new and you've been beat up and humiliated by alcohol. The tendency may be, yes, I've got to focus on this thing. But notice, what did Ebby tell Bill about from the beginning? He didn't come in and preach to him like, Bill, you got to stop drinking. He said, Bill, I found religion, developed a new relationship with my higher power, and here's how I did it. So moving onward. So we're developing a new relationship with our Creator and to discover the obstacles in our path. Now notice Bill's assumption there is that there are obstacles in our path in that relationship. So Bill has established that yes, we need a relationship with a Creator in order to stay sober. The problem is that we are blocked by self-will. We are blocked by our obsession with self. And one of the things blocking us is one aspect of what blocks us are our character defects, which is what we are going to address with step 5. Okay, so we have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. So what he's saying is, we have diagnosed the problem. It's like, what do I want to say? Back many years ago, this might be TMI. So sorry. I had a gallbladder issue. Okay, and I went to the emergency room, and it was really painful. And they did an ultrasound, and they diagnosed the problem. So they diagnosed the problem, but what they did not tell me is, okay, you have gallstones. That's your problem. See you later. They didn't send me home with that. They set me up for surgery. So the problem is, as an alcoholic, my tendency is to do it the first way, to diagnose and say, I know the problem now. I'm resentful. I'm this. I'm that. So I have this self-awareness. And then I'm baffled as to why I still have unmanageability in my life. So anyway, now so We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. It's critical that we acknowledge here, where he's saying now these are about to be cast out. It is absolutely critical to understand the steps and understand how we need to proceed through the steps. It is critical that we acknowledge I'm going to use a fancy word, the counterintuitive nature of the process we have to engage in. And what do I mean by that? How do we cast out character defects? We share them openly, honestly, and thoroughly with another human being. It doesn't make sense on an earthly basis. We have a spiritual malady, and because we have a spiritual malady, we have to engage in a spiritual remedy. And what happens is that by sharing ourselves in the fifth step, we open the door to grace, to step in and remove the defect, or at the very least, change our relationship to the defect. It doesn't make logical sense. However, it works. And I can speak from experience on this. It works. But if we try to, and I guess I'm hammering this because if we adhere to logic, what we will end up doing is avoiding or minimizing the need to do a thorough inventory and to share it with another person. We will minimize that and engage in a process of self-awareness. And by doing that, we keep ourselves locked to alcohol. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which when completed will mean we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our character defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. I want to hit on in the previous sentence the exact nature of our defects. And this is a point that he polishes even to a finer degree in the 12 and 12. Because what he's saying is that we understand, and he lays out for us, and we talked about it in the previous chapter. We talked about resentments and we talked about fear. And then when we go to the 12 and 12, he focuses it even more intently on, he says, to avoid confusion, we'll use a list called the 7 deadly sins. And the reason why, again, I'm going to stress this is that, again, because we are involved in a spiritual process, we have to kind of frame our character defects in a spiritual language that spirit can interact with in an effective way. And okay, it sounds like gobbledygook, I know. Here's the point, is that if we identify something as a character defect and it's not really a spiritual character defect, we basically submit ourselves to just self-awareness and nothing else, rather than seeing the exact nature of the wrong. And what, like, let me give you an example. Um, I had an issue on my inventory with avoiding confrontation, any kind of confrontation. I don't mean like, I mean anything that I thought was confrontation. So um, I I wouldn't do things like ask for days off. I wouldn't do, and then all of that stuff, and then create unmanageability in my life because of that. And I said, I avoid confrontation. It's a character defect. It was pointed out to me, au contraire, that's not a character defect. That's the result of a character defect. The character defect is fear. The character, or you could even say it's pride, in that I'm putting the outcome in my own hands rather than God's hands. Do you see my point there? By doing that, good. Really critical. Okay, I'm going to speed it up here so we can get through. But there are key points there that I think we need to acknowledge. Moving forward, this first sentence is explanation, so it's green. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. This is why what I would say is those of us with time who have been through the process owe it to newcomers to acknowledge and to assume they're probably going to feel resistant to this. So we owe them not only the power of our experience that we acknowledge we were scared of it too. Like, let's get it out in the sunlight. But also to be reaching out to those newcomers, and that's funny. Also to be reaching out to those newcomers and be ushering them, be guiding them through the fourth and fifth step, because their tendency is going to be to want to avoid it. Does that make sense? Okay. And now we have the next three sentences are warning. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. Remember, I mentioned the program of self-awareness. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. And notice that Bill, always the diplomat, always trying to, not come down too hard, he's sort of tightening the screws a little bit here. And he's really laying it out. And we'll see that really loud and clear on the next page. And I think he's doing that because he realizes he's got to, because now it's really getting down to life or death. So now we have more explanation. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further than a solitary self-appraisal. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see the good reasons why we should do so. And I hope you have your pink, okay, and that's explanation, what we just read. And I hope everybody has their pink highlighter all warmed up, because pretty much everything from this point forward is going to be warning. So, over a page of warning. This is why this is so critical. The best reason first, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. I'm going to get a little bold here, folks. I've been, because my 35 years sober, when I see people go out, especially people who have previously been established members. Like how could that guy pick up a drink? He was the DCM. He was the group chairperson. How could he drink? Or so and so helped so many people. How could he pick up a drink? Or so and so, or I've seen this. So and so had a liver transplant. It doesn't make sense he would pick up a drink, but he did. And if I had to diagnose why that happens, I'm going to pull it down to one word: secrets. Secrets. The best reason first: if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. That worked well in most cases. No. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. Notice what he's saying there. They wondered why they fell. That means, and this gets back to, I think, the obligation those of us who have been through the process have to talk openly and plainly and in a forthright way about our experience with this, and to really walk hand in hand with the newcomer, be making sure that that newcomer is sponsored up, has somebody they can trust to share this with, because the tendency is to end up drinking and not really know why they ended up drinking. And so what they do is they attribute their drinking to lack of vigilance. I wasn't on guard. Have we heard that? I forgot. I didn't keep it green. I got to be constantly vigilant. I've got to remember. Nowhere in this book does it say we drink because we forgot. It's saying we drink because we did not complete our house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty, in the sense we find it necessary, until they told someone all their life story. And the other reason why people will drink and remain baffled is because they are a victim, as are we all, of delusion. So they can't see it. They can't connect the dots. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they're suffering from alcoholism. So again, those of us who have had sponsors who have helped us connect the dots and now see ourselves and our disease in a different way, I know I've said this like 8 times already. I'll say it 9. We have an obligation to be, when we get our 3 minutes to share, that we be using that time to share that. And when when we're chatting it up with people in between meetings or at coffee, we have an obligation to talk about this process and the dangers. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but in his heart, he doesn't deserve, but in his heart, one more time, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. But one of the things that I had to recognize is that it's not conscious. They're not, see, the tendency is to want to villainize these people and say they're just trying to get over. They're doing the best they can. But they're locked in a pattern. And it's part of the spiritual malady. And so they've manufactured what I'm going to call a persona, a stage character. And I did it in the world, and I did it in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it wasn't until the dots were connected by another person that I was able to share the inventory, the exact nature of the wrongs. And in doing so, sorry gang, I'm going to get like little woo here, have a spiritual revelation, have a spiritual epiphany where I felt the presence of God actually like rewrite my like mindset, my ideas about who I was and my role in the world. And suddenly everything was different. I still had much more work to do. But it was only because of the stuff I'm talking about. You know what? It's 4 minutes after, so rather than, even though we have critical warnings still to follow, I think I'm going to leave it right there. We'll pick it up there next.